Hey Rovers, welcome to Wave Rover Season 3, where Wave Rover will be leaving Baltimore, Maryland, the United States of America, right here, and heading to Baltimore, Ireland. Or at least that's the landfall we'll be making as we cross the ocean. Now, what are we going to do? We've got a couple of weeks at the very least of work we have to do on Wave Rover, and I'll get into that right away. Then it's going to be a couple of weeks heading down to Chesapeake Bay. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then we'll hang out in the Norfolk area waiting for a weather window, head out to the Azores, and then from the Azores we'll head out to Baltimore, Ireland. From there, we'll work our way up to Dublin. Hope to be in Dublin sometime around September. Anyway, we've got a fair bit of work to do. Time to crack on. So just a little bit of general overview of what needs to be done. The rudder, of course, needs to go back on, and the reason it's off, and you're going to see why a little bit later on, is because I've changed the hinge system, not of the rudder, but of the trim tab that goes to the Mark III. And what am I doing? It's not really revolutionary. In fact, it's I'm just following my own plans. I tried something new. It didn't work out for me. I'll explain all that. But the plans that I currently sell the Mark III, that's what I'll be using. It works effectively. So the second big thing we're going to tackle is, yikes, what's going on here? The keel doesn't look like this. Well, this is a little improvement we're making. We're adding this great big lead shoe here to the bottom of the keel, and I'm going to get Andy to explain that. We have to weld on some studs to bolt this on, and of course there's one on each side. Apart from that, the other big thing we have to do is provision, because I want to make sure, while I have good support here in Baltimore, I want to load up with all the food that I need to get me across the Atlantic. I'd like to have enough to get me all the way to Ireland, so that would mean carrying at least 3 months worth of food on board. And so I'll show you probably in the next couple of episodes how I tackle that. Anyway, I am on a bit of a tight timeline here. I do want to be underway in about 12 to 14 days depending on the weather. Are you guys guarding Wave Rover for me? All right, very good. You're doing a great job. Look at the goose walking by the boat. These guys were guarding the boat last night. In fact, they weren't sure who I was, and they sort of ran me off. Hey Rovers, I'm inside one of the shops here at Rotobush Yacht and Engine Works, and they very kindly have lent me a little bit of space to work on my rudder. So here's the rudder. And what I've done is I've fabricated some steel when I was back in PEI, and I also, before I left, I inserted a pin into the bottom of the trim tab. So if you remember from before, we had laced this through these holes here to the rudder. So the trim tab was laced to the rudder in the very same fashion that I'll be lacing the rudder to the boat through these holes. Now, because I'm not lacing anymore, I filled these holes and faired them. So that's done. This remains the same. I've drilled the holes out just a little bit bigger, but the real difference is, so now that it's not laced, and let me just pull the pin here. So now with the safety pin pulled, you can see it just moves really effortlessly. So that's what we were after all along. The problem before was that with the lacing, we tend to get a rolling rather than a pivoting. But when the shaft goes through these blocks here and here, it tends to pivot. So between the pivoting here, and the rolling, the trim tab was binding, and it just wasn't giving me the reaction that I needed for the self-steering. I mean, if you look at the passage I made down the Jersey coast, the conditions were great. The wind speed was strong, and she self-steered really well in those conditions. It was about 20-25 knots, but we need to be able to steer in the the 5 to 20 knot range as well. So this should fix that. Very happy with the work. Of course, this is higher now by about an inch than it was before. So in order to lock it off, and again, I don't have enough hands to do this, so I've got a little pin like I had before, and we just put it through to this block, and then that locks it off. The reason you need it locked off is not when you're going forward, because the trim tab will always trail in line with the rudder. You need it locked off for when you go astern or you push out, because what will happen is the trim tab will tend to go one way or the other, and then of course the rudder will follow, and that just makes steering impossible. All right, now with this done, the next job is to get it installed. There we go. Just that easy. So I've got the rudder back on, and it really didn't take that long, and I had my friend Tom here giving me a hand feeding it back and forth. You'll see that in a moment. And you can see the lashing, well, they're nice and tight, and the trick is when you go to do this, take the rudder and push it up just a little bit higher than it should be, tighten up all the lashings, and then take the wedges out from underneath, and the weight will take it down exactly where it needs to be. This rope has zero stretch to it, so that's what we're after. Now take a look at this. Just with really just with the smallest effort, the rudder is moving back and forth. And then this is the key too. You can see how easily the trim tab moves now, so there's no more binding happening, and that's what we were after. The final thing I want to show you is right here. This is these longer lengths right here. This is the new stuff that I just put in, and these right here, these are left over. I'd cut them free from the first bit of lashing we did. So we had 1,500 nautical miles on these guys. These are fresh, of course, but as you can see, there's no wear on these at all. These were fine when I took them off, and if I didn't have to do the kind of renovation on the trim tab, I would have left the rudder on right through the winter, because the lashings were virtually new. So I have no worries that these will fail. I know some of you have indicated that, but people have been using these for decades, and really centuries before that. So now with this trim tab set up the way it is, I've filled these holes. Now we're going to have to put bottom paint on everything. The final step on this is just to squeeze a little bit of sealant into all these holes, and that prevents the lashing. Well, it prevents the rudder from moving on the lashings. That amount of friction will keep it from jarring one side or the other. That's all you need. It's not to prevent water from going in, because if you go back to the construction phase, you'll know that these have been over drilled, and then they've been filled with epoxy, then re-drilled, so water can't penetrate. So that's it on the rudder. I'll get those filled and get the tiller on next. So this is 4200 I'm using, and like I said, I'm just sealing these holes to prevent the lashings from moving. Look at that. That is the easiest movement you could require from a trim tab. Very nice. And there's the lock, very easy to engage. How about the rudder? How easy is that to move? So again, just one finger, just nice. In fact, I've got a little breeze blowing here right now, and the breeze, you can actually feel it. The breeze will move this rudder. So that's how light a touch it is. And I'm going to show you how I control the rudder now. So this is a method that was shown to me by Harold back in Stonington. Some interesting videos from back then if you're interested. So this is a line that's just running from two stanchions, and just pop it through this ring and then put this hook on it, and then I've got a line that comes up here, and you can just tension this, and by tensioning it you can see you can let go of the tiller and the boat will hold whatever course. So a lot of times I can just put it midships, I can pop below, make some sort of something happen, talk in VHF, check the chart, numerous things, come back up here, and the boat will probably still be on the same course. Another thing I like about this is when I'm powering and coming to a dock or something, I like to engage this and then just have it angled so that the boat will come in slowly to the dock. I don't have to be here. I can walk forward, jump ashore, and take care of the lines. Anyway, thank you very much, Harold, back in Stonington, for showing me this. A valuable skill, a nice little technique. I'm very happy to use it on Wave Rover. Well, great to be back on Wave Rover's quarterdeck. Now, just a little update on the sailing plans. I will only be stopping at one port in the Azores, and that's going to be on the island of Fayal, and the port, of course, will be Horta, just a famous crossroads in the middle of the Atlantic. Looking forward to going back there. In fact, Wave Rover is already, as many of you know, already painted a section of the quay, which is encouraged there with the Wave Rover name and sort of an emblem, and we will be updating that emblem when we get there this time. Now, the next port of call, of course, is Ireland, but Ireland's not a port of call. The actual port that I'll be clearing in Ireland is Baltimore, and I just love the symmetry of leaving Baltimore, United States, and entering Baltimore, Ireland. So in either case, if you are a Wave Rover fan and you're in Horta or you're in Baltimore, be advised, Wave Rover will be coming to town. So I also want to say, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe. It helps me a lot with the YouTube algorithm to grow the channel. So the more people who actually subscribe to Wave Rover and watch the videos, the better it is for me, and which in turn means the better it is for you, because the more I can put into the channel itself. If you really enjoy, don't forget there is a Patreon account as well. Now, folks, as always, thanks for watching, and forge your own adventure.